This video will show you how to replace your engine cooling fan assembly on a Mazda 3. This will be located along the front of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Along the front of the engine compartment, we can see our radiator cap. We're going to turn this counterclockwise to remove it. It's important to note that the cooling system may be under pressure, especially if the engine's hot. You never want to open this if the cooling system's hot to touch. Clearly this one is not, so I'm going to press this down, turn it counterclockwise, and lift it up and away from my face. Now, once I have that off of there, I always like to give it a close inspection. I want to confirm that the cap is in good usable order. This is, so let's pause here and we're going to make our way safely under the front of the vehicle. Now we're going underneath the driver's side front of the vehicle. On the front splash shield, you should find that you have an access panel. Now on these, they do have a mounting screw, but you don't actually have to remove the mounting screw. You can just use that as a pivot point. So all I'm going to do is gently start pulling this down along the rear. It has a locating tab. I can pivot this. And looking up inside this area, we can see our drain plug. As far as this drain plug is concerned, we want to make sure we have a collection receptacle under this area. We're going to be turning this counterclockwise until coolant starts making its way out into the collection receptacle. Once the coolant stops coming out, we'll go ahead and close this off, dispose of the coolant properly, and we'll continue on. We've waited for the coolant to finish draining. We're going to close this drain plug. Make sure it's all the way tight. We don't want to have any coolant dripping out of this while we continue on. There we are. Clean any mess from in this area. We'll reinstall our protective cover. Nothing on the shield. Now, as far as this plastic cover is concerned, the center goes up and over this shield, so you can gently flex it as necessary. Just slide it right up and above. Double check to make sure everything's secure under here. We'll make our way safely out from under the vehicle back into the engine compartment. We're back under the hood. Let's pay attention along the driver's side. We can see our upper air filter housing. Along the front area here, we have our inlet tube leading into the lower housing. We'll remove our two 10mm bolts up along this area. Now, as you can tell, as we wiggle this around, we're moving the entire air filter housing around. We're going to start removing this entire thing. We'll dislodge the upper housing from the lower housing. Looking along the forward side, you can see two locking clips. You can take hold of those and dislodge them. Now we can make our way up into this area. We're going to start loosening the 7mm headed clamp. You don't have to fully dislodge it. We just want it loose enough that we can slide this tube away from the housing. Now we can take hold of the upper housing. We'll give this a wiggle. We're going to have to lift it up, pull it forward, sliding it away diagonally from its rearward mounting points. We'll set that aside. Go ahead and remove that air filter from in the area. A thorough inspection of the air filter. If it looks like it's dirty, you want to replace it. This one looks fine, so I'll set it aside. Now let's take hold of this lower housing. There are several mounting points. It essentially just lifts straight up and away. Now we're looking at our upper radiator hose. We will be dislodging it from the radiator, but we also want to dislodge it from this one mounting point. Now you could remove this bracket by using a 10mm, but this plastic clamp also does have an area that you could use a small pick or screwdriver and gently pry it apart. Once you have it separated, just go ahead and remove that hose. As far as dislodging the upper radiator hose from the radiator, squeeze the clamp and slide it out of place. We'll take the entire hose and slide it rearward. If you find the hose is stuck in place, use an angled hose pick, break it free. You should be able to separate it after that. Soft and pliable. Let's set that aside. Now up along the top area here, we can see that we have a large wiring harness making its way all the way over to the other side of the vehicle. Since we're on the driver's side, let's start along here. We're going to make our way all the way down along the fan assembly. As you follow this wiring harness down, you can see that we have an electrical connector here. We're going to disconnect all of our connectors and each one of our mounting points. There's that. As we follow the wiring harness up, we can see our next mounting point. I'm going to gently pry this out of place. Now, as far as these securing tabs, if you did happen to break it, you could replace it with a wire tie during the installation process. Let's continue on. We're right up here. Now we can see where this connects to our fan. Let's dislodge that electrical connector. Let's get this off of here. Now we can set this portion of the wiring harness aside. I'm continuing on. I'm using this small trim tool. We'll just make our way right along this area. We're going to start separating this wiring harness from the fan coming across the top. Now you can see we have plenty of slack over here. We're going on the other side of the coolant reservoir. We'll continue on with this wiring harness. Now we have some more securing points making their way across the top. Separate those. Now we're going to follow this wiring harness down. We have another securing point and an electrical connector, which is attached to our fan assembly. I'm going to use some long nose pliers for this electrical connector down here. Same as before, just go ahead and squeeze in on that locking tab. We'll lift it up and out of place. Plenty of slack from this wiring harness now. Now along this area in the center, we can see our coolant reservoir. We're going to dislodge the reservoir hose from the top of the radiator. We'll take hold of that, attempt to give it a twist. Once it does feel as though it breaks free, you should be able to slide it out of place. We'll just make sure it's soft and pliable. Now I'm going to be using my flat blade screwdriver deep down in this area. I'm going to carefully make my way in between the cooling fans and the tabs which are attached to my coolant reservoir. I'll gently pry the locking tab away, and we should be able to lift this up. Go ahead and remove that coolant reservoir. We'll set that aside. Now we're going to start dislodging the fan from the radiator. Looking up along the top corners of the fan, along either side, you're going to find a 10mm bolt to be removed. At this point, we can reach down in this area. We're going to take hold of the fan and start lifting it up and out of here. You're going to find that it has to make its way up and out diagonally towards the driver's side. The radiator sits extremely close to your plastic intake. There it is, friend. Prior to installation of the brand new fan, let's make sure we inspect each one of our mounting areas along the bottom of the radiator and up along the top. As far as the top is concerned, there's 2 mounting nuts that you want to make sure are in proper placement. Now let's install our cooling fan assembly. We're coming in at an angle. Being extremely careful for our radiator cooling fans and all wiring harnesses will bring this down into the proper positioning. Flex as necessary. Now that I have this rested in here, we're focusing along the bottom. We want to make sure the bottom's secured before we make our way to the upper hardware. Now as we bring the fan down, we're attempting to align the bottom tabs with the tabs on that radiator. We just need to carefully align this, and we'll slide it down into the proper position. You need to do the same thing on both sides of the fan assembly. Once you have the bottom aligned, you should be able to align the top as well. We'll start in both pieces of hardware, and then we can snug it up. Now we're looking at the wiring harness. Let's start securing this to the fan assembly across the top. Line it up, press it in. We'll make our way all the way across. There we are. Now we're going all the way down on each side. I'll start on the driver's side. We're making our way down along the fan. Plug in that fan motor. Press it in, listen for a click. We'll continue following this down. We have another mounting point, and we have our coolant temp sensor at the bottom of the radiator. We need to connect that in. Just twist this until it lines up. Audible click. Make sure it's secure. Let's make our way over to the other side of the fan assembly next. As far as the other side, there really isn't too much to worry about here. We'll plug in the fan motor first. Audible click there. We're going to secure this along the fan. And then secure this point as well. Our clip is broken. I'm going to be using a wire tie in this instance. We have our coolant hose next. We'll bring it underneath our plastic bracket. Of course, we're going to lock that down. Make sure that's secured. Bring the upper portion over to the radiator next. Press that onto the radiator as far as possible. Continue on with your clamp. We're going to squeeze that clamp and we'll slide it into the original position. We just have to make it over the lip on the radiator. Double check to make sure that's secured in place. Let's continue on with our coolant reservoir. We have a locating tab on the bottom and one along each side. Line it up with the corresponding areas on the fan, slide it in. We're just going to have to work this into position. We'll continue on along the top area here. This connects directly onto the radiator. Double check to make sure everything's secured here. We'll make our way to the air inlet next. We're going to start bringing this down into position. Along the bottom of the air filter housing, you're going to find that you have some rubber mounts. We want to pay attention to those in comparison to the studs which are attached to the body of the vehicle. Now I can see 2 of my tabs are aligned, and down in this area, I can see the 3rd. We'll press it down into position. Go ahead and give that a quick wiggle. We'll continue on with our 2 mounting bolts along the front. It's time for the air filter. The dirty side goes down. Now it's time for the upper air filter housing. We're going to take the port side, we'll slide it into the hose. Down along the bottom of this air filter housing, you're going to find 3 areas for your locating tabs attached to that upper housing. Start getting this in position here. Okay. Before we tighten this, let's make sure we align those tabs. Press it down. You'll know it's in the proper position. When it goes down far enough, you can attach your 2 locks along the front. Double check to make sure that's secured. Now we're going to tighten our clamp. Make sure that's secured as well. You do not want any dirty or unmetered air making its way into the engine. It's time to fill the cooling system. To do this, there's several different ways. One of the most basic would be having a coolant fill funnel. You want to use the adapter necessary for the radiator. On my instance, the funnel actually fits directly into the radiator, so I don't have to use an adapter. We'll continue on with the manufacturer's specified coolant. We need to top off the cooling system. Now, once you've filled the cooling funnel to the point that you don't see any air coming up and out and coolant making its way down, you need to continue on by running the vehicle. As we're running the vehicle, you're going to run it until it gets to normal operating temperature. You're going to hear those cooling fans turn on along the front of the engine compartment. At that point, the thermostat should be opened up and coolant will be circulating throughout the entire system, removing any air. Now that I've run the vehicle, it's up to temperature. I'm going to be extremely careful, but I have to take hold of that coolant hose. I'm going to give it a light squeeze and install my coolant plug. We can remove the coolant funnel apparatus and reinstall our radiator cap. Turn that clockwise until it's completely bottomed out. Okay, friend, we finished the installation. Now at this point, you want to make sure you clean any mess. Take your vehicle for a road test and then double check for leaks. Aside from that, thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.